The Iron Wraith lay forgotten at the edge of Andara spaceport. Its once shining hull was now scratched, dented, and rusted. Panels hung loose, sparking occasionally when the wind hit them. The engines were cold, silent, and lifeless, as if the ship had given up on the stars long ago. Around it, other ships gleamed with polished surfaces and powerful engines. Pilots and engineers whispered when they passed by. "No one wants it," they said. Even a fleet of drones couldn't make it fly. But Kale, a human mechanic with bright eyes and grease-stained hands, saw something different. Where others saw decay and failure, he saw challenge and hope. Humans were a strange species, often underestimated in the galaxy. They were small, fragile, and easy to ignore, but they never gave up. Kale had a saying he carried with him everywhere. Where others see ruins, we see possibilities. And when he looked at the Iron Wraith, he knew he had found his next possibility. Kale had no rank, no title, and no official fleet backing him. He was just a mechanic who believed in doing the impossible. He touched the ship's control panel gently, like he was greeting an old friend. Sparks flew and the lights flickered weakly. Kale smiled. "You're tired," he said softly. "But I can fix you. We'll fly again." Other engineers walked past, snickering. "That human? He'll waste himself on that junk," they said. Kale ignored them. He had long ago learned that humans thrived on stubbornness, and stubbornness was exactly what this ship needed. Days turned into nights, and nights into weeks. Kale worked tirelessly, scavenging broken parts from old cargo drones, welding hull plates together, and carefully rewiring damaged circuits. His hands were raw, his clothes torn, but he never stopped. The Iron Wraith began to respond in small ways. A console beeped when Kale passed by. A vent opened automatically. The ship's AI, once dormant, whispered softly through speakers. Systems, partially operational. It was weak, hesitant, but alive. Kyle felt a surge of joy that no one else would understand. This ship, abandoned and mocked by the galaxy, was now listening to him. He slept on the cold metal floor of the engine room, dreaming of roaring engines and streaking stars. He imagined the Iron Wraith flying past distant suns, outpacing ships 10 times its size, and he felt a deep connection to it. It was more than a machine. It was a partner, a friend, and a symbol of human persistence. The other species at the spaceport started to notice. A few curious engineers dared to peek inside while Kale worked. "Still alive?" they asked quietly. "Still wasting time?" Kale just laughed. "It's not waste if it flies," he replied. And he knew he was right. Every scratch, every dent, every burned-out wire was a story of survival. He was not just repairing the ship. He was restoring hope to something the galaxy had already given up on. One evening, as twin moons rose over the spaceport, Kale crawled into the engine room, grease on his face and a streak of blood on his hand. He tightened the last flux stabilizer and flipped a switch. The engines trembled, and a faint vibration traveled through the hull. Kale froze, holding his breath. The ship groaned, almost like it was stretching after a long sleep. Then a soft light spread across the console. The AI's voice came again, stronger this time. "Primary systems online. Core stability. Nominal." Kale's eyes filled with tears. No one had believed in this ship. Not even a single council member or captain. But he had. Against every warning, every doubt, every mocking voice, he had brought life back to the Iron Wraith. He whispered, "We'll fly again. I promise." The promise was not just to the ship, it was to himself, and to every human who had been told they were too small, too weak, too insignificant. From that moment, Kale knew that nothing could stop him. The galaxy might have abandoned the Iron Wraith, but humans had a way of turning the impossible into reality. One bolt, one wire, one spark at a time, the Iron Wraith was awakening. And with every hum of a booting console, every flicker of a dying light now returning to life, the bond between human and machine grew stronger. Kale felt it in his bones. This abandoned starship was about to become something no one in the galaxy would ever forget. He looked up at the vast stars beyond the hangar, and for the first time Cale imagined soaring among them. He imagined challenges he had not yet faced, dangers he had not yet seen, and victories no one would ever expect from a human mechanic and a discarded starship. The galaxy had written off the Iron Wraith, but Cale had other plans, and together they would show the universe the meaning of persistence, courage, and human heart. Weeks passed, and Cale's hands grew calloused, his fingers streaked with grease, but he never stopped. Every corner of the Iron Wraith had been touched, checked, repaired, or reinforced. The ship that the galaxy had abandoned was slowly waking, like a giant stretching after a century of sleep. Small lights blinked across the hull. Sensors twitched as if testing themselves. The engines no longer felt like dead metal. They hummed faintly like a heartbeat returning after being silent for too long. Cale moved from console to console, wiping sweat from his brow. "Come on," he muttered, "just one spark." One more spark and we're alive. Outside the hangar, other species walked by, whispering. "Still trying?" a Zarian engineer asked. "Even your human tricks won't fix that pile of junk." Cale didn't answer. He never had to. He knew what humans had that others often underestimated: patience, determination, and a refusal to accept failure as the final word. Then it happened. Cale connected the final stabilizer to the quantum power core. Sparks flew, bright and dangerous, and the ship shuddered violently. Alarms screamed in protest and the lights flickered madly. Cale's heart pounded. He held the manual controls with both hands, adjusting wires and rerouting power, as the ship groaned beneath him. And then, almost impossibly, the trembling stopped. The hum became smooth. The lights steadied. The engines vibrated softly like a sleeping giant finally breathing. A soft voice emanated from the AI console. "Systems partially restored. Awaiting commands." Cale froze, staring at the flickering display. The Iron Wraith had spoken. For a moment all he could hear was the echo of his own heartbeat. No council decree, no mocking voice, no alien sneer could match this feeling. The ship had remembered life, and it remembered him. Cale wiped a tear from his cheek. "We did it," he whispered. "We're alive again." He knew the galaxy would never believe it. They had written this ship off. They had said a human could never turn it into anything useful. But Cale didn't need their approval. He needed only one thing: the belief that life could be restored where others had given up. Even as the ship's systems came back online, Cale could feel the challenges ahead. The engines were not yet strong enough for flight. The shields were unstable, and the galaxy outside was not forgiving. Space was dangerous, full of pirates, raiders, and fleets that would destroy anything unfamiliar. If he tried to launch now, the Iron Wraith might not survive. Cale knew he had to keep improving, keep pushing, keep testing limits that no one else would dare touch. He spent nights in the control room, writing notes and drawing diagrams, dreaming of impossible solutions. He attached hybrid engine boosters, reforged shield generators, and experimented with a rare quantum crystal he had found in an abandoned cargo hold. Every modification brought the ship closer to life, closer to the strength it once had, and beyond what anyone could imagine. Cale had a vision. The Iron Wraith would not only fly, it would dominate. It would show the galaxy that humans, though small and underestimated, could create wonders that no one else could. Outside, curiosity began to grow. Other species watched Cale work, unable to hide their fascination. A young Zelthian pilot peeked into the hangar one evening. "The human is still alive?" she asked in disbelief. Cale smiled. "We're just getting started," he said. "One day this ship will fly farther than anyone expects." She nodded, unsure whether to laugh or believe him. Humans were always strange, tenacious, unpredictable, fearless in ways others couldn't understand. And Cale felt the bond with the Iron Wraith grow stronger with each day. It responded to him, anticipating his moves almost like it understood that he was not just a mechanic, but a partner, a friend, a human who refused to give up. Every light that flickered on, Every console beep, every hum of the slowly waking engines was a promise. Together they could face anything. Late at night, as the twin moons of Andara Spaceport rose high in the sky, Cale climbed into the cockpit. He ran his hands across the controls, feeling the subtle vibrations of the core. The ship whispered beneath his fingertips, alive and patient, waiting for the moment it would soar. Cale stared out at the endless stars beyond the hangar, imagining the void, the challenges, the adventures that awaited them. The galaxy had abandoned the Iron Wraith. The fleets had scorned it. The Council had laughed. But Cale knew better. This ship was alive now, and so was hope. And for the first time, Cale allowed himself to dream, to imagine the impossible, to picture flight among the stars, to see a human mechanic and a forgotten starship rise together, unstoppable and unbreakable. The first signs of life were more than lights and hums, they were a promise. A promise that the galaxy had underestimated humans, and a promise that Cale and the Iron Wraith would show them what persistence, courage, and heart could achieve. The day finally came. Cale wiped the grease from his hands and climbed into the cockpit of the Iron Wraith. He could feel the hum of the engines beneath him, steady now, confident. It was a feeling he had never forgotten. The thrill of possibility. The electric pulse of life returning to something abandoned. He glanced at the console, lights blinking steadily, gauges showing power levels well beyond what the ship had ever had before. Outside, other species gathered at the spaceport. Whispers filled the air. "Is he really going to try it?" a Zelthian pilot asked. "That ship, it's been dead for decades." A Groovian engineer shook his head. "Humans are foolish," he muttered. But Cale ignored them. He had learned long ago that humans thrived on stubbornness, and today, stubbornness would lift them into the stars. Cale activated the engines. The ship shuddered violently, panels rattling, sparks flying in protest. He gritted his teeth, adjusting power flow, rerouting energy through newly reinforced conduits. Slowly the shuddering stopped. The engines hummed, a steady, powerful rhythm like a heartbeat that had been silent for too long. Cale smiled. "We're ready," he said softly. The Iron Wraith seemed to respond as if it understood him. With a deep breath, Cale pushed the throttle. The starship roared to life. Flames of blue and white light blazed from the engines, illuminating the hangar. The dock trembled beneath the surge. Everyone watching gasped. For decades, this ship had been a ghost, forgotten and abandoned, and now it was alive, thrumming with power and determination. Cale guided the Iron Wraith slowly upward, past the hangar ceiling and into the open sky. The first few meters were tense. He felt every vibration, every tremor of the ancient ship. But the more he pushed, the more the ship responded. It soared upward, and then suddenly it felt effortless, as if the Iron Wraith had been waiting for him all along. The crowd at the spaceport could only watch, stunned. The ship that no one wanted now carved streaks of light into the sky. Its engines flared brightly against the backdrop of the twin moons, leaving trails that sparkled like stardust. Cale laughed aloud, the sound of joy and triumph. He had done what everyone said was impossible. He had brought life to the dead, but freedom came with danger. As the Iron Wraith climbed higher, sensors picked up incoming ships, interceptors dispatched by the Galaxy Council. "We cannot allow unregistered vessels to roam," the Council commander's voice boomed across the comm network. Their ships approached with sleek precision, weapons glowing, ready to force Cale back to the docks. Fear prickled at the back of Cale's neck. The Iron Wraith was powerful, but it was still human ingenuity versus fleets of trained Council pilots. He clenched the controls, feeling the heartbeat of the ship beneath his hands. "We can do this," he whispered. And the ship seemed to respond, engines pulsing stronger, shields flickering into full power. The interceptors fired, lasers cutting through the sky. Cale dodged, twisting and banking the Iron Wraith in ways no one expected. Other species gasped at his maneuvering. unable to believe that a single human in a supposedly broken ship could outmatch trained pilots. Cale's movements were unconventional, instinctive, creative. He didn't follow rules or standard maneuvers, he invented them in real time. The Iron Wraith responded perfectly. Shields flared, deflecting beams. Engines screamed, sending the ship darting through the sky. One interceptor after another failed to keep up. Cale grinned. Humans had always been underestimated, and today he was proving exactly why. After a tense chase, the interceptors gave up, retreating in disbelief. Cale exhaled, sweat dripping down his face. He looked out at the stars stretching above him, endless and infinite. The Iron Wraith had survived its first flight, not because of size or firepower, but because of heart, creativity, and relentless determination. Cale felt a surge of pride. The galaxy had doubted him. It had mocked him. But now for the first time he felt its awe. Cale knew this was only the beginning. The Iron Wraith had more power than anyone had ever imagined. But it was not just a ship. It was a symbol. A symbol of human persistence, human courage, and the refusal to surrender to impossible odds. The galaxy would remember this day. Not for the Council's orders or the fleets of trained pilots, but for the human who had turned an abandoned starship into something unstoppable. He whispered to the ship, as if it were a living being, "We're just getting started. The stars are waiting and so are the challenges." The Iron Wraith hummed in reply, engines pulsing like a proud heartbeat, and Cale, human mechanic and dreamer, felt for the first time that he and his ship could take on the universe, and maybe even change it forever. The first flight was not just a test of engines or shields. It was a declaration. Humans could defy expectations. Humans could take the impossible and make it real. And the Iron Wraith, once abandoned and forgotten, had become a legend in the making. Cale had never flown the Iron Wraith farther than the edge of Andara spaceport. But now the galaxy was calling him to greater dangers. Rumors had spread of his miraculous flight. Other species whispered of the human who had made a dead ship fly. And as the whispers grew, so did the attention. Not all of it friendly. One evening, while exploring a remote nebula, Kyle's sensors blared warnings. A fleet of pirate ships had appeared from the shadows, drawn by stories of the rogue ship that defied the galaxy. Their numbers were overwhelming. Dozens of vessels bristling with weapons far more advanced than the Iron Wraith. Cale felt a cold pang of fear, but he did not waver. Humans thrived under pressure, and Cale had learned that fear was not the absence of courage, but the decision to act in spite of it. The first attack came swiftly. Lasers lanced through the dark clouds of the nebula, striking the ship's shields. Sparks flew across the cockpit as the Iron Wraith shuddered under the impact. Cale's hands flew over the controls, diverting power to the shields, rerouting energy from engines to weapons, making split-second calculations that no AI could predict. The pirates were confident, arrogant in their numbers, but Cale had something they could never understand: human creativity. He maneuvered the Iron Wraith through the swirling gas clouds of the nebula, using the environment as a weapon. The pirates struggled to follow, their sensors confused by the shifting shadows. Cale grinned. "They think strength is enough," he muttered. "We'll show them it's not." With a deft twist of the controls, he fired concentrated energy bursts from the quantum-powered cannons, striking one pirate ship after another. They fell, spinning into the void like toys. The battle raged for hours. Cale's body ached, his face streaked with sweat and grime, but he refused to stop. Every time a pirate ship came close, he found a new trick, a new angle, a new way to survive. The Iron Wraith groaned and shuddered, but it obeyed him perfectly. Lights flickered, alarms blared, but Cale's eyes were calm, focused. He had never felt more alive. Amid the chaos, Cale's mind wandered for a moment. He thought of the council that had abandoned him, the pilots who had left, the species that had mocked his stubbornness, and he smiled. Today, they would see the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not small. Humans could take what others discarded and turn it into something unstoppable. The tide of the battle began to shift. Kale had learned the pirates' patterns, anticipating their moves, striking where they least expected it. He fired another quantum blast and the flagship of the pirate fleet erupted in flames. The remaining ships faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. Kale's heart pounded not from fear but from exhilaration. He was winning, not with brute force but with ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination. Finally, the battle was over. The pirate fleet scattered into the nebula, defeated and humiliated. Kyle hovered among the wreckage of their ships, chest heaving, eyes shining with triumph. The Iron Wraith had survived against impossible odds. It was no longer just a ship. It was a legend, a testament to what humans could achieve when others doubted them. Kale allowed himself a moment to breathe. He touched the console gently as if thanking the ship for its loyalty. "We did it," he whispered. "We survived. Together." And the Iron Wraith hummed softly, a quiet, proud acknowledgement. It was more than machinery. It was alive in a way that only humans and their creations could understand. The nebula around them was quiet again, broken only by the drifting wreckage of defeated ships. Kale looked out at the stars, endless and infinite, feeling the enormity of what had just happened. He realized something profound. No matter the danger, no matter the odds, humans could endure. Humans could adapt. And humans could change the course of events with determination, courage, and heart. As he set a course for the next unexplored sector, Kyle felt a thrill of anticipation. The galaxy had learned its first lesson about humans: underestimate them at your peril. And Kale knew there would be more lessons to teach. The Iron Wraith was no longer abandoned. It was alive, powerful, and unstoppable, and together, Kale and his human spirit would carve a place for themselves among the stars. The battle for survival had been won, but the war for respect, recognition, and the freedom to explore was only beginning. Kale smiled, gripping the controls tightly. The galaxy was watching, and he was ready. News of Kale and the Iron Wraith spread across the galaxy faster than he had ever imagined. Stories of the human who had turned a forgotten, abandoned starship into a powerhouse, traveled from planet to planet, whispered in spaceports, shouted in fleet command centers, and recorded in holovids. Kale had never sought fame, never asked for recognition. He only wanted to see the impossible become reality. Yet suddenly the galaxy was watching him. Leaders and fleet commanders arrived, offering positions, ranks, and honors. They wanted him to lead fleets, to command advanced vessels, to show others the human secret that had saved countless lives against impossible odds. The council that had once dismissed the Iron Wraith now bowed in respect. Kale smiled politely, but he shook his head. Leadership for him was not about titles or authority. It was about freedom, creativity, and the chance to keep pushing the limits of what was possible. Instead, he chose to teach. Kale began taking young mechanics, pilots, and inventors under his wing. He shared his knowledge, showing them how he had rebuilt the Iron Wraith, how he had made a ship that no one wanted into a weapon of ingenuity and resilience. They were amazed at the human approach, not following rules blindly, not relying on size or strength, but solving problems creatively, thinking outside the box, and refusing to surrender. Kale became more than a hero, he became a mentor. Young humans, as well as beings from other species, came to him seeking guidance. They asked him how he had achieved the impossible. And Kale always replied the same way: never give up. Look where others see failure, and ask yourself what is really possible. A machine is only as limited as the mind controlling it. Even the Iron Wraith seemed to grow under Kale's care. With every modification, every upgrade, the ship's power increased. Shields that had flickered weakly now shone bright and impenetrable. Engines that had groaned in protest now purred with the strength of 1,000 ships. Kale felt a deep connection to the vessel, a bond that went beyond pilot and ship. The Iron Wraith was alive because he had given it life, and in return it gave him confidence, courage, and loyalty. the galaxy's perception of humans began to change. They had long been underestimated, seen as fragile, unpredictable, and inconsequential. But Kale's actions, his determination, and his success with the Iron Wraith shattered that illusion. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, risk-takers, and visionaries. Kale had proven that with enough heart, persistence, and courage, even the smallest, most underestimated beings could accomplish feats others believed impossible. One evening, as Kale worked on the ship's engine room, a group of young recruits approached. Their eyes were wide, their voices full of awe. "Master Kale," one of them said, "how do you do it? How do you make the impossible happen?" Kale looked at them, wiping grease from his hands, and smiled. "You don't look at what everyone says you cannot do," he said. "You look at what you can do. You try, you fail, you try again, and eventually, you succeed." The recruits nodded, absorbing every word. They could feel the truth in it, the human spirit, the relentless drive that refused to surrender, that refused to accept limits. And Kale knew that his greatest victories were not measured in battles or technology, but in the minds he inspired, the hope he sparked, and the courage he instilled. As the twin moons rose over the hangar, Kale stood on the deck of the Iron Wraith, gazing at the stars. Each star represented a new challenge, a new adventure, a new chance to prove that humans were not to be underestimated. Kale placed his hand on the ship's hull and whispered, "We've come far, old friend. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy has yet to see what we can do." The ship responded with a soft hum, as if acknowledging the promise. Kale felt a surge of pride, not just for himself, but for all humans and those who had dared to dream beyond the limits set by others. The Iron Wraith was no longer a forgotten relic. It was a symbol of courage, persistence, and the incredible power of human determination. Kale realized then that the galaxy was changing. Not because of fleets or weapons, but because one human had refused to accept limits, had worked tirelessly, and had shown the universe what the human spirit could accomplish. And as he prepared for the next mission, Kale felt the truth of it in his bones. Humans, no matter how underestimated, had the power to change the stars themselves. The call to leadership had come, but Kale chose a different path. He would lead not with authority but with example. He would inspire, teach, and innovate, and the Iron Wraith would continue to be the proof, the shining, unstoppable proof, that no one should ever doubt a human mechanic and the power of human ingenuity. For months, Kale and the Iron Wraith explored sectors the galaxy had long forgotten. Every jump through the stars was a test of ingenuity. Every system visited a chance to learn, repair, and upgrade. Kale had grown comfortable in the vast emptiness of space, but the galaxy had a way of reminding humans that challenges never truly ended. It began quietly. A flicker on the sensors, a distant shadow moving across the star charts. Kale studied it carefully. No markings, no known fleet signature, he murmured. The readings were unlike anything he had seen. Faster than standard ships, armed with weapons that could obliterate entire planets. An alien armada unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. Panic spread quickly among nearby colonies and fleets. Entire systems were falling under sudden, precise attacks. Kale watched the reports with grim determination. Retreat was an option, but Kale had never been one to run from danger. Humans thrived under adversity, and Kale had proven time and again that ingenuity could overcome even overwhelming odds. He gripped the controls. "We'll face them," he whispered. "We can't let fear decide for us." When the Armada arrived at an unprepared planet, Kale moved quickly. The Iron Wraith glided silently through the debris of moons and asteroid fields, cloaked among shadows. The alien ships had never seen tactics like his before, using the environment to hide, striking from angles no one expected. Kale felt the hum of the ship's engines beneath him, steady and alive like a heart ready to fight. The battle began. Alien weapons struck like storms, tearing at the shields. Kale's hands flew over the controls, rerouting energy from weapons to shields, then back to engines, then to the quantum core. Every move was a calculation, every maneuver a gamble. The Iron Wraith shivered under the bombardment, but it held. Kale pushed it harder, using tricks no AI could predict. The ship twisted through the asteroid clouds, disappearing from enemy sensors only to strike again in precise bursts. Hours passed in tense silence between explosions. Kale's mind raced, calculating, improvising, adapting. He thought of the council that had dismissed him, of the fleets that had doubted a human mechanic, of the young recruits who had looked up to him. All of them depended on his courage now, and Kale knew that humans thrived not because they were strong, but because they refused to surrender. Then came the moment of truth. The alien flagship loomed ahead, massive and imposing, a machine of destruction unlike anything Kale had ever faced. Conventional attacks would fail. Retreat was not an option. Kale's pulse quickened, but his mind was clear. He rerouted the quantum core, concentrating all energy into a single, unstable pulse. The risk was enormous. The ship could tear itself apart, but so was the cost of inaction. With a deep breath, Kyle released the energy. The Iron Wraith screamed as a wave of light and force erupted from the core. The alien flagship convulsed under the blast, systems failing, weapons silenced. The remaining armada faltered, uncertain, and then scattered into the void. Kale exhaled, chest heaving as the nebula fell silent once again. The battle had been won, but Kale felt the weight of it in every muscle and bone. The Iron Wraith had survived against impossible odds, not because of brute force, but because of human creativity, courage, and determination. Kale looked out at the stars, endless and unbroken, and realized something profound. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and time and again, humans had proven that heart and ingenuity were more powerful than size, numbers, or reputation. The news of Kale's victory spread like wildfire. Colonies that had been on the brink of despair cheered the name of the human who had faced a galactic armada and survived. Pilots and mechanics across species recorded holovids teaching Kale's methods, copying his innovative maneuvers and creative tactics. And Kale, ever humble, focused on one thing: learning, adapting, and preparing for whatever came next. As he guided the Iron Wraith back through the quiet stars, Kale allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Humans had always been underestimated, but perhaps that was their greatest strength. No one expected persistence, courage, or ingenuity from a species so small, so fragile, so ordinary in appearance. Yet those qualities, combined with the human heart, had changed the course of the galaxy. Kyle placed a hand on the ship's hull, feeling the vibrations of the quantum core, steady and alive. "We've done well, old friend," he whispered. "But this is just the beginning. There are more challenges ahead, and we will face them together." The Iron Wraith hummed softly, as if in agreement, alive not just as a machine, but as a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they refused to surrender. The galaxy had seen the first sign of human ingenuity, and it had survived. Kale knew that the next trials would be harder, the threats greater, but he also knew that humans, when underestimated, had a way of surprising the universe, and Kale, mechanic and dreamer, was ready to continue proving that even the smallest, most unlikely heroes could change the stars themselves. Years passed, and Kale's name became known across countless star systems. The Iron Wraith, once abandoned and forgotten, now gleamed with upgrades, history, and victories. Ships bore its design as inspiration. Statues were built on distant planets, capturing the image of a human standing proudly atop a ship once deemed worthless. But for Kale, fame had never been the goal. He had only ever wanted to see the impossible made real. The galaxy that had once laughed at humans now studied them with caution, awe, and respect. Kale had proven what no fleet, no council, no alien observer had expected. Humans were capable of genius, courage, and creativity beyond imagination. And it had started with one mechanic, one starship, and a refusal to accept limits. Kale often found himself alone on the deck of the Iron Wraith, gazing at the stars. Each twinkling point was a reminder of challenges faced, worlds saved, and dangers overcome. He remembered the first flight, The first battle, the fear, the adrenaline, and the sheer joy of seeing the Iron Wraith rise from ruins. Every memory reminded him of the bond he shared with the ship, and with every human who had dared to dream beyond the boundaries others had set. Young pilots and mechanics continued to seek Kale's guidance. They came from across species and systems, curious to learn the human way, how to approach problems creatively, how to improvise under pressure, how courage could turn fear into opportunity. Kale taught them patiently, sometimes repeating the same lesson dozens of times. Never let others tell you what is impossible, he said. If you believe in your heart, in your mind, and in your hands, you can turn anything into reality. The Iron Wraith had become more than a ship. It was a symbol, a living testament to human determination. Its hull carried scars of battles fought and won. Its engines thrummed with energy that Kale had coaxed from scraps, innovations, and intuition. And its very presence reminded the galaxy that nothing abandoned, nothing overlooked, and nothing underestimated could not be brought to greatness with the right heart behind it. One quiet evening, Kale received a message from a distant council. Entire sectors had faced a new threat, an alien species planning to invade peaceful colonies. They requested Kale's leadership, hoping his tactics could save them. He could have taken command of a massive fleet, held authority, and been celebrated as a hero. Instead, Kale smiled softly and responded, "I will go, but I go not as a commander, but as a human who believes in ingenuity, courage, and determination. Follow if you wish, but the galaxy's future is built by those willing to act, not those seeking titles." When Kale arrived at the threatened sectors, the alien forces were already advancing, but the Iron Wraith, piloted by a human who had mastered innovation and courage, struck fear into their lines. Kale used the environment, unpredictability, and creative maneuvers to outsmart fleets far larger and more powerful. He had learned through years of struggle and triumph that the greatest weapon was not a fleet of ships, but a mind that refused to give up. The battle ended in decisive victory. Colonies were saved, alien fleets scattered. The galaxy witnessed once again the remarkable power of humans, but Kale never sought credit. He simply returned to the Iron Wraith, hands on the controls, eyes on the stars, always thinking of the next challenge, the next frontier. Stories of the human mechanic and the abandoned ship that became a galactic powerhouse spread even further. Children told tales of Kale's courage. Pilots named their ships after the Iron Wraith. Entire academies used his lessons to train the next generation of inventors and warriors. Kale had become a legend, not because of firepower, not because of rank, but because of heart, persistence, and vision. Standing on the bridge of the ship one final time, Kale placed his hand on the console. The hum of the engines was steady and proud. "We've done well," he whispered. "We've proven them wrong, and we've shown the galaxy what humans can do." The Iron Wraith seemed to respond, glowing softly, alive not just as a machine, but as a witness to human achievement. Kale looked out at the endless stars, feeling a deep sense of peace. The galaxy had once doubted humans. It had once scorned the weak, the small, the overlooked. But one human mechanic had shown them that persistence, courage, and creativity could change worlds, defend civilizations, and turn an abandoned relic into a legend. And Kale knew this truth. The Iron Wraith had not made him a hero. Humans had made themselves heroes. Their heart, their mind, their refusal to accept limits. That was the power that changed the galaxy. Kale smiled, eyes shining. He had lived the proof of a saying humans always believed: where others see ruins, we see possibilities. The galaxy would never forget the story of Kale and the Iron Wraith. And neither would he. The adventure was never about the ship or the battles, or the victories. It was about the human spirit, burning bright, unstoppable, and capable of anything. Kale whispered one last time, as the stars stretched infinitely before him, "We did it, together." And the ship hummed, as if in agreement, carrying the promise of humans into the endless void. The legend was complete. The human had turned the abandoned starship into a galactic powerhouse, and in doing so, had shown the universe that even the smallest, most underestimated beings could change the course of history forever.